Hey everybody, it's Patrice Sandstrom, and we are talking about getting inspired into action today. So I'm at KW Aspire. Thank you so much, Sally, for having me. I'm really excited about being on this journey with you today, and can't wait. So first of all,
thank you so much for coming. I have to say, this is the one session that people ask me time and time again is, when is it repeating?
Wow.
So enjoy everybody. And please do, as Patrice has already said, participate.
Absolutely. And you guys, I'm very direct. So there will be things in here that may make you uncomfortable, right? I'm going to have those conversations and that's by design. So, and then also I say it at the end, but in case people leave, I have dozens of people that text me and ask me questions and reach out. I'm certainly always happy for all of this stuff. So if you are questioning things and you want to talk it through objectively, I'm always here. So I'm going to start out, you guys, with a little bit about my story, right? This class is about the 5 lessons I've learned that I wish I knew at my core when I began my career in real estate. And I'm a mom of 2 daughters. I have 2 stepdaughters, and I actually have a step granddaughter named Skylar. She's super cute. So I started in this business as a single mom, and I've held the position of either the #1 or the #2 team for the last 5 years at Keller Danville. And we've been the #1 office in Northern California and Hawaii region. So it's a really big office with lots of us. I see my screen. Is my screen kind of funny right now? Well, let me know if it it's funny to me, but okay. So again, we're going to start off our session with me just kind of talking about my bumpy journey of how I failed my way forward into this career in real estate. We're going to go way back. You'll see it on the screen. I dropped out of college my junior year. And this was well before the tech billionaires made it seem cool. I did it for my own reasons. So, and I remember this moment clearly because it was the first time that I ever found myself with a really hard decision, right? I was the typical happy college student. I had just reached the pinnacle of sorority girl social success, being on homecoming court. I was excelling in my classes, and I was the treasurer of the Geology Honor Society. I know, nerd alert right here. So everything was going according to the plan of what I thought I should be doing on my path to become a doctor of volcanology. Doesn't that sound exciting? That's what I was like, oh my God, a volcanologist? That's so me. I grew up as a tomboy in the swamps of Louisiana, and Jenna on the screen is my next door neighbor, so she knows this is true. And I always was outside barefoot, and I wanted to be a field scientist. But one day I also became aware that I also wanted to be a mom more than anything. And let's face it, climbing into a volcano with a baby on your back isn't really aligned with anyone's idea of what a great mom should be. So I knew I had to make a hard choice. And to be honest, it felt like a shameful choice at the time. But I did it anyway. And so 2 weeks after I turned 21, I left my comfortable life behind and I moved across the country to California. I was sleeping on my friend's couch for almost a year. In that time, I worked jobs in retail. I was a waitress at a comedy club. Actually, that was really fun. I was an au pair for a professional athlete. I got to travel with them. That was also amazing. I had such great experiences. And then at 23, I was like, I got to get serious, right? So I moved back to Louisiana and I opened a coffee shop. Oh my God, I loved starting a business. It was so exciting. And then 2 hours after I opened, I was like, oh my God, do I have to work in a coffee shop for the rest of my life, right? It was miserable. So I sold that about a year later. I got married, and then I was a struggling stay-at-home mom. And I say struggling stay-at-home mom because, to be honest, the tedious day-to-day activities were a real challenge for me. I would lose keys. I would burn food on the stove. It just was, it was a challenge. I mean, that sounds like the easiest thing in the world, and it just wasn't for me. Luckily, my husband's boss actually recruited me to be his executive assistant. And he was the CEO of this company, and he was a professional negotiator. At the time, I didn't even know how to turn on a computer, but it was a great education for me because I learned everything from negotiation to delegation, although I never learned how to type. I learned to get the receptionist to do that stuff for me. Anyway, so at 30, I eventually moved back to California, and this is where I finally get in the real estate business, and I'm a loan processor for a really top mortgage broker. And of course, keeping with my pattern of 1 year, 1 year later, I finally got my real estate license. So clearly, I didn't take the most direct path into this business. You might say I was a jack of all trades and a master of none. So thankfully, I fell into real estate 15 years ago, and this is the first career I've ever really excelled at. And as you'll notice, I'm super passionate about the opportunities that this business provides. So whether you're a new agent or you're ready to take your business to the next level, get out your pen, because I'm going to share my most impactful lessons that I've learned on this crazy journey. The ones I wish I knew from the start. So lesson number 1, be is more powerful than do. We've all heard of the popular book, Think and Grow Rich, right? Have you ever noticed it's not called Do and Grow Rich? Well, this is a 70-year-old bestseller, and it basically sums up 20 years of research of people who created some of the biggest personal fortunes in American history. It outlines 14 principles of self-development that form the foundation for their philosophy of achievement. And this book is still a classic for a reason. And thankfully, these principles are all applying, and they've proven really true in my journey. And I learned them in a class that Keller Williams offers called Bold. So when I joined Keller Williams 6 years ago, I had a very negative mindset about self-help and about training in general. And for those of you that know me now, honestly, this is very ironic. But at the time, I just wanted to build a team and have more free time. Luckily, my amazing team leader, Kristen, convinced our entire ALC, which is our leadership council, to sign up so that she could encourage other non-producing agents to join. And you guys, this experience was life-changing. Bold's an immersive 7-week class. And for us, there were 60 people in the room. There were 10 per group, and one group had to have a team captain. And since I was the top producer at the table, I was reluctantly named the team captain. And I had no idea what to do, and I was scared. But it seemed important that I should lead by example because they were scared too. So I quickly realized that the people around me needed to see my courage and my vulnerability. They needed me to become a leader. So with this new perspective, I felt empowered to attempt things that I'd been avoiding my whole career, because at the time it seemed important, more important, that they see me do it first, no matter what the result was. And when I became the leader that was required for that role, it was like magic, because my own fears, my limiting beliefs, and my ego just melted away. You see, up until then, all of my clients were referred to me, or I met them face to face at an open house. To be honest, I was too uncomfortable to what I would call chase business. Honestly, I thought I was just too cool for it. I had this ego. And by the way, a lot of times I needed the money. I just couldn't get over that, right? So for the first time, here I was door knocking. I got one listing from that. I'm like, what? I was calling expireds. I got 2 listings from that. So within those 7 weeks of business, the 7 weeks, I put 14 pieces of business into contract. Like, that's a lot for our market. And more importantly, the agents around me were trying and doing new things too. And that fulfilled me in a way that I've never felt before. And that's when I learned the difference between being a great agent versus being a great homeowner. So the first lesson is, for next level success, it's not only about what you know or what you do. To get extraordinary results, it's about who you become. So how can you put this into action? Well, first, I believe it starts with an open mind and an honest self-assessment of yourself with no judgment. I want you to be open to accept that the version of you that you are likely doesn't have the skills and knowledge to create your fantasy life. Otherwise, you'd already have it. So if you want the best life possible, in my opinion, I think you need to gather your courage, and I think you need to make time to study yourself and practice dreaming of what you'd want to be, what your life would look like if you had a magic wand. And the cool thing is you get to do this with pure fantasy, like when you were a kid, right? Discovering your best life in an, oh my God, this is risky kind of way, right? You should be writing things that make you make you nervous to say it out loud, right? You're like, you should be embarrassed to tell your friends, oh my gosh. And then you should commit to learning what's needed to bridge that gap from where you are to where you're going. Have you ever received a compliment and you loved it, right? And then later you're like, God, I wish that was really true. Let's be real. It probably was true, at least for a minute. So what if it was that easy? What if you could just consciously practice becoming more and more like the person that person saw in you? And this takes practice. This was super challenging for me. I finally had to start choosing to ask myself questions and questioning my beliefs and ask, if I were to become what that person saw in me, my best self, what would that really look like? For me, it was easier to see it that way. I'd ask questions like, what actions would a great leader take? If I want this type of team member, life partner, or client, how do I need to behave? What skills would I need to master to get the results that I truly desire? I love asking great questions, and this practice is called a gap analysis. So to make it more fun, because that's my jam, I like to call it my rainbow bridge. You can think of it however you like. The goal is just to get from where you are to where you want to be and figure out what you need to do, right? So next, when you figure this out, you need to really explore your answers. And then you start taking action, consistently taking brave steps every day in the right direction towards becoming the best you. And since the goal is always to live our best lives, why not commit to enjoying the journey and celebrating every obstacle instead of complaining about it, right? And really enjoying every blessing and every lesson. So honestly, that's it. That's my number one, is to endeavor to become the very best version of you. Does anybody want to share any ahas or questions?
I'd like to say something.
Sure. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, I just want to say that, oh gosh, this feedback is bad. I don't know if anybody else can hear that, so sorry,
No.
but Patrice, you truly embody this as our team leader. You give us the space to face our obstacles, and you do it with grace and just such an open mind that I just want to thank you for that right now, because every time I attend this class, I learn something new and I hear something new, even though, you know, I know this class very well, and
she created the slides, so she does know the class very well.
Yeah. But it just sinks in deeper, and it really solidifies, you know, why I joined this team and what we get out of it with you as our leaders.
Thank you, Jenny. And I didn't pay her for this, you guys, I swear.
I think in the chat, Patrice, we've got Carolyn who could really relate when you were telling your story, and Louise also commented that, you know, she herself was a jack of all trades. And what I love about what you deliver, Patrice, is that you're real, and you're not scared to say, look, you know, look at how I started and I kind of fell into this. And your mindset is, you know, it doesn't actually matter. And I've said this, and there's a few people on the call that I know I've personally said it to. I don't care what you did in the past. When you join Keller Williams, this is your new start. This is your new opportunity, and you can be who you want to be. And you are like living proof of that.
Thank you. And that is why I start with that story, is because it does, we hear new agents all the time that say, I'm not good enough, I can't compete. And the reality is, if you care about your clients, if you care more than anyone else, nobody wants an expert. They want an advocate. They want someone who really loves them. And to be honest, every one of those strange jobs that I had, from small business owner to comedy show waitress to au pair, really prepared me for being the full spectrum that I am, because this is such an interesting role, right? So that's exactly why I put it there. And it's almost like there's a freedom sometimes when you don't have that. And of course, I know a lot of you have come from corporate and have come from high street agency. There are skills that you learn there that you want to leverage. So this isn't about throwing everything out. It's really about just leveraging your experience to become whoever you want to be, right, in this business. And yeah, it is a really cool opportunity. So thank you. Anyone else want to share? All right, we'll move on to lesson number 2. You must discover, and sometimes rediscover, to be honest, that's where I am now. You must discover and then commit to your big vision and your big why. Another one that was challenging for me, I'd go in these meeting rooms and I would write all of the appropriate things. Oh, I want to take care of my children and I want travel, but I wasn't feeling it. That was enough to get me to put food on the table, but maybe it wasn't enough to get me to go to the next level. So my question to you is what will you slay dragons for? What's really worth your true commitment? And by the way, it's okay if you don't know today. It took me a while. But for now, I'm asking you to commit to being open to dreaming and finding out the answer. And this takes practice. And why is this important? Because some days this is going to be hard. A lot of them. When you're committing to building a better life, when you're a business owner with hundreds of responsibilities and dozens of roles, there's going to be challenges and obstacles to overcome, probably lots of them. Recently, I heard a quote, if it's not hard at the start, then it's not real change. So why should we feel surprised? Let's go in with eyes wide open. Everybody loves this. This is like the favorite slide. So this one is the best. This is talking about the emotional cycle of change. And I'm just going to turn around one second. Okay. Sorry, I hear my dog scratching around, so I just wanted to make sure she's not on any nonsense. So this is my favorite. So I love this. So we're at the emotional cycle of change. Those of you that are super new in this business, this is where you are right now, uninformed optimism, right? There's lots of people that are here. It's a fantastic place to be. This is when you're starting a journey, whether it's business, a diet, a new relationship, a hobby, sport, whatever it is. We all start at uninformed optimism, like, yay, this is so exciting. I'm going to have this amazing career. Everybody I know loves living in a house. Like, how hard can this be? This is fantastic. I know lots of people. I'm well respected in the community. This is going to be so amazing. You're like, yay, great. Okay, well, sorry to say, here we go on the path. So we're going around, day 2 calls. You're like, I don't know why that person didn't answer the phone call. I think I've called them 3 times. That lady calls me constantly and she's not picking up my phone. Did that person just take an offer on the house that I was going to put a bid in? That's not really fair. I was just about to write an offer. I finally got a client and it's moving forward. Wow, that stinks. Oh my gosh, I made a mistake. I don't really know how to do this well. This is hard, right? We've just fallen below the line, the emotional line. At some point, you will be prepared of informed pessimism. You're like, this is hard. This is when things are starting to kind of fall apart and you're realizing that it's just not that easy, right? You're like, wait, I have to call people 12 times before they call me back? Like, I don't want to bother them. People aren't going to like me. I'm going to ruin my reputation. All this stuff starts going through your mind, right? And you're like, oh God, I don't like informed pessimism. Well, if you don't like this, then you're in some trouble because it only gets worse from here. Then we go down and we're cutting into the yucky, really deep valley of despair. You guys, the valley of despair is when it really gets hard. This is when your days are hard. You're doing the same thing over and over. You're not seeing any progress. People aren't calling you back. Someone's rude to you. Like, what? You had to be rude to me? I donate every time your kid needs to buy something. I bought every Girl Scout cookie in town. I'm asking you for even a call back and you won't call me back, right? All of this stuff is going through your head. This is when your children don't like you anymore. Your partner doesn't like you. You've been eating like cold pizza for the last week. By the way, I still do that. Everything's starting to fall apart. It's like you're unsure. And this is where discomfort happens. And I'm talking about business, but by the way, we've seen this happen, I'm sure, in diet, in health, in hobbies, in sports. This is where people go, you know what? I don't think this is worth it. This is too uncomfortable. It was okay where I was, right? And again, this happens in all forms of life. It's like this vicious cycle. This, you guys, this is where we all will be at some point. So do not be surprised by it. This is why I call my big why my rainbow bridge. And you can call it a rocket ship or a comet or whatever it is. But it's something that you need to blast yourself up, right? You got to get way out of here and you don't want to just claw one tiny tier at a time. So what do we need to blast ourselves all the way to the top from where we want to go, from where we are now to where we want to go, right? And this is all about your mindset. It's knowing what do you need to fill your gap and then making that commitment to do what it takes to get from here to there, right? And it's really just about being informed and being aware of what you need to learn and master and become. So once you get your rainbow bridge and you get out of this valley of despair, you get back into informed optimism, right? It's very similar to this. It's the same activities. Nothing's changing. People still aren't calling you back, by the way. However, now you know that, okay, it's going to, you know what? Those books were right. It really does take 12 times before someone calls me back. That's why I understand why they say you have to call someone 36 times a year over a 2-year period, because it does take a while, right? And this is when you go, it's okay. This is going to be hard. People won't call me back. Someone might be rude to me, but my big why, my vision, my passion, my purpose, it's worth it. That's where you get to momentum. Once you're here, it really is a smooth sail because it just starts happening and you get into success and fulfillment. And for those of you that have been with KW or have seen Gary Keller speak, you know that Gary Keller, he would never get to success and fulfillment because once you get to that next level, there's more that you find out that you want and you become. So really this is, instead of it being a vicious cycle, this is just a beautiful cycle of growth, which is really nice. But my point here is, you guys, if you want to have an extraordinary life, then be prepared because it will require a little bit of extra, right? That only makes sense, at least at the start. I've watched patterns, and in my experience and watching others' experiences, it seems to me that statistically in this business, we hear no, the sales business in general, probably 97 to 99 times to get 1 to 3 yeses. That's a lot of rejection. And that's before you even begin working with the client. That's just for them to say, yes, I'll work with you. You're like, oh my gosh, that was hard enough. So if you don't have that inner drive to give a little extra push when it gets hard, well, maybe you'll get to your level of success. Maybe you'll be on par with your current lifestyle. But if you want to have that extra, you need to really push yourself to a new level so you don't settle for just good enough. So how can you put this into action? Well, first, take some time to set your vision, your big why. You want to open your mind, and you need to be open to grow with books, maybe podcasts. You could take classes. I don't know if you've ever experienced the funeral exercise. That was a big one for me. It really is a compass, asking yourself those questions of what do I want my life to look like? And we could talk about that at the break if someone doesn't know. And then, this is what I'm known for saying, and be open to lots of journaling in any form. You guys, this is a board meeting with yourself. This is how you really ask yourself those tough questions. Next, you have to commit to doing this. You can do a 66-day challenge, you can time block, but you need to practice this and get into mastery. Because to get your most beautiful life, you're going to need to be ready to do whatever it takes and to burn the ships. I decided I want to live in Paris for a year. I was kind of slowed down, but that was my goal, is I want a year in Paris. So I switched all my phone settings to French. How else am I going to learn it, right? I need it in my face day after day. You don't have to do that. But the point is like, if you're going to have a commitment, then make it a commitment. So that's, you guys, that's my lesson number 2, to explore, to discover, and commit to your dreams. Does anyone want to share or have questions? Sally, I see you're off of mute. Did you want to share something?
No, I'm driving at the moment, so apologies.
Sally's driving? Oh.
That dip that you talked about, I feel like I'm there at the moment, but I can see the informed optimism coming up, and I've only just got this. I think in the last week, I feel a bit more focused. And I know it's going to take a lot more effort. And yes, the people that who you think would phone you back, they definitely don't. And it's just that challenge of keeping in touch in different ways and not just salesy ways. That's the main learning curve for me.
I love that. This is a great aha. You got some claps definitely from me. And if you were on screen, I'd show you a heart hands. Thank you so much for being vulnerable. Isn't it? It's interesting when you that you noticed it. So I love how you kind of noticed that click. I never noticed it until I saw and learned about this slide. And then I was like, oh, so it's amazing that you're there. And I can't wait to hear more about your journey as you progress. So please keep me posted.
And Havana's got her hand up. Patrice?
Havana, go on whenever you're ready.
Hi, Patrice. You're wonderful. Your energy is immaculate. And I just love it. I love all of it. I'm writing everything down. I just actually wanted to know, is there any podcasts that you recommend?
So I think we talk about that later when we can send. I love the Amplify with the Dolls podcast. I can't remember. Jenny, you can maybe post that on there. I love the one thing. I don't mean to be all Keller, but to be honest, you guys, the Keller Williams classes are really just, they've taken everything from some of the best learners and condensed it for real estate and for growth. And so I have to say, those are 2 of my favorite ones. The Amplify, is that what it's called? I know that's their group name. There are some different ones. So we'll have Jenny post that on the screen. And then the one thing is fantastic. So I know there are a lot more than that. Does anybody else want to share their favorite podcast? And Havana, I want to say too, like part of this growth, it's great if it's real estate, but also think about who you want to be as a person as well, as a whole person. Do you want to be in leadership? Maybe like a John Maxwell class may be great. Do you want to, we want to build a whole life, not just a real estate life. So it could be a philanthropist that's out there. But anyway, those are my 2 favorites for now.
I think everybody's trying to get an Uber into somebody's rocket ship on the chat. There seems to be quite a few people that are right in the valley right now, of no surprise. I think they're all wanting to jump in together. So I think some shared ideas maybe from anybody that's been there. What is that rocket ship? How does it look? And what do you need to get out of it? And someone said, do we get there a lot? Yes. I think you find yourself in the valley quite a lot. So you've got to have a good rocket ship.
I think as well that this valley of despair tends to be on like a monthly cycle when you start out, because it's when you would normally be paid in your normal job, and taking this massive leap to do something like this. That's when the doubt creeps in for me anyway. So when I would normally see that money entering my account, I have a massive wobble at that point every single month. And then I kind of managed to claw myself back up again by just using all the tools and the skills that we're given with Keller Williams to try and claw back up. So I think I can really relate to what you've said, but I am finding myself in there at least once a month.
Ruth, I love that share, and you'll hear me talk about patterns and cycles quite a bit. And this isn't something that I learned. I heard it from Diana Kokoska, who's just phenomenal. She's who I'd love to be someday, really. She talked about paying attention to the patterns, right? That's where the answers are, and especially if it's cyclical. So, I think it may be nice if you guys could do a mastermind on this, especially if that's something that's common, because you guys are changing the way that business is done. And so you do have a different level of mind shift to kind of get into. And so everyone is likely on that same cycle. So it may be fun to do a lead generation group right before and or right after, where you are all doing lead generation together, because there's something, right? Again, Havana talked about it. The energy is there. You have to have that energy. And that's something that we started doing on our team as well, is sharing that together. When we're all together, if you hear someone doing something well, or whether even when they fail, right, and you get that support, it's really powerful. So that might be something interesting for you guys to do as a group. And then I do think it's important to journal on that. What does that mean? What is that triggering? What fear is that evoking? And see if you can kind of unpack some of that stuff as well, because that's fascinating. And of course, Sally, I'd love to participate and be a part of any of that if you'd like ever to.
There was a reason, and I sort of hinted it with Jenny, and she said, when did I want you to come and do Inspired into Action? And I said deliberately at the last few days of a month, because this is, especially in the UK, when people are expecting that salary, this is a part where we all feel more vulnerable.
Interesting.
And what we I think are needing maybe to do as a market center, as a team of people, is think about almost remembering how that feels, that anxiety about not having any money, and what are we going to do about it? What can we do to make that feeling go away this time next month? And the answer, of course, is we need some deals, whether it's lettings, sales, we've got to get the money in.
Well, you got me excited, because recently paying attention to this energy thing, my thing is people kept talking about the energy. So now I'm like curious about energy creation and how can I leverage that for my business and for my life and for sharing, right? So I've kind of gotten up, now you hear me, I'm like, oh my God, I'm excited. So I've been listening. There's this book called Letting Go, and it talks about the different levels of energy. And one of the parts that it talks about is the different, there's a number, and it's apathy is at the bottom. That's like, don't want to do anything. But anger is higher. I think it's like anger is at 75 and apathy is at 20, like right above death. So anger, fear, you guys, that is energy. So instead of saying, let's push it away and make it, what if we leveraged it? What if we saw it differently? Erin Wheelock, you've taken classes with us. She's my peak performance partner. And half the time I call her, she's like, what if that wasn't it, right? What if instead of trying to make that feeling go away, what if we looked at it differently and leveraged that fear as a power, because it does have higher energy. We can't get into that too much here, but isn't that an interesting thing? Hi, Louise.
Yeah, just a couple of things. So firstly, as I said, as Sally said earlier, jack of all trades. I think I've been jack of all trades because every time I hit valley of despair, I've walked away. I've kind of thought, this isn't me. And I'm really pleased. I, like you, have found an industry and found a business that I've gotten into the valley of despair so quickly, because I'm only at month 5, but I'm not wanting to walk away. I'm not wanting to run away. I'm wanting to face those challenges and to get myself back up there. So I know that this is my right place. And, hearing you say and making it real and seeing it in a chart just makes me think, it's like a deep sigh of relief that what I'm feeling is quite normal and everyone else is going through it. Hence for an Uber Lux. I think we do need an Uber Lux cab to get us rocketed back up.
I love that.
So but also talking about the lead generation, I was talking to Sally about wanting to promote a Wear Pink Day, which is on the 22nd of October, and Sally's made that into, you know, a possible sort of lead gen event where we all come into the market centre, wear pink, and we all try and do some lead generation on that day. And I think that would be a really great idea if we could get a lot of people to commit to that, because I think I definitely need that support from other team members that are actually coming in for that purpose and not just for a chit chat and a coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's not great to have a chit chat and coffee, and we'll do that, but to have that purpose.
Well, maybe have some rules and standards. And I'll say, Louise, even if it's just you and one other person, because there will be, by the way, starting this will be like the Valley of Despair. You're going to have a huge group, and then you're going to have less, and then there's only going to be 2 of you, but you have to get through that to get to the next level too. So I think that's fantastic. And you guys, raise your hand. I mean, for you feeling this, you all think it's only you, right? Sometimes it feels like we're drowning. That's how I felt in my bold class so often. I would be like, it's only, oh my God, I'm drowning. But if you look to the side and you see everyone else doing those same motions, you're like, oh, this is swimming. When you're first starting, you don't know the difference. When you see other people that are doing those same things, having those same experiences, doesn't it feel like, I'm okay? We can do this together, right? I just got goosebumps. Think of you that shared. I love this. And I think, again, Sally, maybe we could talk on this later. And I definitely think there's enough of you there that clearly the group can get value from this. So I love that. Does anyone else want to do a share, or do you guys can put stuff in the comments and we'll talk about it a little bit later too? Because this is definitely something that's obviously a lot of people are feeling. All right, so we are going to move into number 3. This is one that we've worked on a lot, and I have to give a lot of credit to Duck, who I think is on the screen. This one has come out of coaching. He and I spoke about this maybe a year and a half ago, and through he and I talking, I've learned so much. So get ready, because I'm going to do my fun impression. And I'm super good at this. So, okay. So first, lesson number 3 is to know, understand, and build trust with yourself. Okay, so here's my quote from The Count of Monte Cristo, one of my favorite movies that I used to love to watch with my kids. I'm still your man, Zatara. I swore an oath, and I will protect you, even if it means I must protect you from yourself. Okay, that was dorky, I know, but I did that for a reason, because I think that line means so much to me. Protecting us from ourselves, what does that even mean, right? Well, I believe that it's your responsibility to master your own goals, vision, values, and self-knowledge. Responsibility, not just like it's a good idea. That's your responsibility. And as a parent, as a leader, as a friend, we're always doing things for other people. And mostly that's a good thing, right? But sometimes it's at the expense of getting out of alignment with ourselves. Now, I'm not saying to be selfish, right? We still want to be kind people. I even have a mug that says kindness matters. But we do need to make sure that you're respecting yourself, that you're valuing yourself at a high level, and you want to honor who you are, and you want to acknowledge the good, the bad, and the ugly. I am not perfect by any means. Yucky. There's a lot of stuff. Sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, oh my God, are these my pores? Oh my God, I screwed that up. Oh my God, I made this mistake. I said this wrong, right? There's a lot of times, don't we all get in judgment with ourselves? But it's time to stop that and just acknowledge who you are. It's your job to protect your ideas, your time, and your energy. And I believe it's easiest to accomplish this when you're in a habit of earning trust with yourself and earning your own respect daily. And you guys, I was starting from below scratch when this all happened. I actually had to create a line as part of my morning routine that I had to read to myself every day. And it's my personal responsibility to know what I need and want from myself and the people in my life and business. I model my own standards. And by the way, if you don't know yourself as well as you could, it's no big deal, and there's no judgment here. But if you really want to build a life by design, then let's consider that maybe it's time, as a responsible business person, as a partner, and just as a human to find that out. And I can promise that me saying that directly, I can feel the energy. That has made some people uncomfortable, maybe a lot of people uncomfortable. And that's okay, because I said that directly for a reason. One of my superpowers is that I have the courage to ask people very provocative questions. So get out your pens, because I'm going to give you a few more of my favorite fierce conversation questions. A few times a year, I go on a walk on the woods with myself. Walk in the woods. That's what Susan Scott, the writer of Fierce Conversation, calls it. And it's at the beach sometimes. It's been in Paris. I do this, and it's where I question myself. And I do this year after year, and it's amazing to see the growth. So here are my questions. Oh, let me click the slide. Number one, what is your purpose? Right? We've heard that question asked, and it's like, oh God, it's another one of those questions. I'm like, I don't know. People just say stuff that sounds good, but what is your purpose? And why? Because if you don't know what your purpose is, how can you possibly time block for what's important versus what's urgent? You've heard that expression, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. That was me for a long time. You guys, lots of activities in real estate will take your time, but only some of them will take you in the right direction. So we want to think of this as a system for decision making, right? That sounds smart. Always like to go back to the science, right? The next thing, what is your unique value proposition? In our business, our unique value proposition is what we're actually selling, not the houses. They sell themselves. In the US, nobody needs an agent to sell a home. I'm a luxury, and I'm compensated really well. So if I don't know my value, how can I share it with my clients? How can I sell myself with it? And the big question, that was a no for me for a very long time. Are you in integrity with yourself? Do you have a habit of breaking tiny promises to yourself by choosing other people's priorities first, maybe to avoid drama or stress? Maybe you're not practicing self-care and healthy self-maintenance. Maybe you're not doing the lead generation or business actions that you've committed to, right? Quote unquote committed to. Or maybe you're just cutting corners and not giving your best. You guys, I found that these habits, which, right, I wrote this class. These were all on my list at some point, right? All of these habits, little by little, will erode your sense of trust of yourself. It'll cause you to doubt yourself. And you'll see that show up in your language to yourself or about yourself, and you're not even aware. So in order to make the best decisions, to be appropriate in the moment, you need to know that you can count on yourself. And trust must be earned every single day, over and over and over by action. And you might be asking, Patrice, why is this even important in a business class? Well, how can you possibly sell yourself if you're not even in the habit of doing what you say? That seed of doubt is going to color every conversation and every relationship. Your self-trust or your self-doubt will be present, and it's going to show itself, especially in times of stress, which is, by the way, a sales call or a presentation. And you may or may not even be aware of it. What if we went to a presentation and we took out our little packet, and it's all fancy. I don't know if you can see me, but I'm holding up my little fake paper. And we're like, Mr. Seller, I am committed, and I'm probably going to do about 62 to 87% of the things I say, because this is what I know that I usually do, right? Yep. How do you feel about that? We would never say that with our words, but what if that's being projected to our clients? Personally, I found that to grow a big business, to lead your team, your family, and your clients, you're going to be at your best when you know deep down that you have what it takes, when you believe in yourself this way. You're building up a pattern of trust and success that'll be very hard to break, and that'll be very easy to convey. So how can you put this into action? Well, first, you need to explore and know who you really are with no judgment. You guys, there's such valuable data in your natural patterns, the things that you've been doing, the things that you instinctually did, right? On our team, we call this our driving values. So how do you start exploring this? Well, I'm sorry to say, once again, it's probably some form of journaling, You can do it with coaching with other people as well, but there's something powerful with just letting your mind pour everything out. It's so important to get out this data so that you can see clearly what's been happening. And then you can pay attention and look for your patterns. As we heard, I think it was Ruth that shared that earlier, right? It's like, it's interesting to go, oh my gosh, how interesting is this? I wasn't even aware of this. And you want to know, like, what types of things are always interfering with you? Especially when you intended to do the right thing, right? How often you're like, oh my God, I really meant to do this. I was really committed, but something else got in the way. So that thing that got in the way, what value was it feeding? Maybe that's one of your driving values. Once we see this, then we can learn to use our patterns to our advantage. We can exploit our natural tendencies and stop fighting them. Let's leverage our subconscious. That's the one making all the decisions anyway. For instance, if you're motivated by recognition, if you're a people pleaser, great. Lots of us in this business. Let's create some outside accountability. Maybe you want a coach, a peak performance partner, an accountability partner, and don't make this your life partner. They've got enough stuff going on. If you love competition, oh yeah, I love that. Great. You like team play, you like winning, I love to win. Then fantastic. Find somebody that you respect and make this a game. And by the way, they don't even have to know. I'm competing with dozens of people. Cody Gibson has no idea. I'm like, he and I are in a competition. He doesn't even know who I am. Actually, he does, but you know, it doesn't have to be someone that's like calling you every day. This is your subconscious that you're doing with yourself, right? If you love helping others, you want to make a difference, stewardship, yay, great. Maybe look for some leadership opportunities. When you commit to helping someone else by teaching, being a partner to a new agent, whatever it is, you're going to actually learn faster. You'll be more bold when you're in service of others, right? And there's dozens of other ones, but if you go to that core of the things that are driving you, you're going to find that there was some reward for you within, because you wouldn't naturally choose to do something that was bad for you unless your subconscious believed that the other thing was more important. And once you know your vision, your values, you trust yourself, well, then you're all set to begin your best life. So that's the end of my lesson number 3, is to learn to build more trust with ourselves. And I always think this is a big one. So I'd love to hear the topic on any ahas or questions on this.
I think, you know, one thing that you've touched on that I see all the time in a market center is we sit down together and we have the great vision of what we want our year to look like, you know, and we break that down into our GPS, we break it down into our 411. And these are the promises that we make to ourselves that we will do, because we know that by doing that, everything else will come. And then we stop doing that pattern. And I know there's one person on the call that's going to really relate to this. We stop doing what we know we should because we get distracted, and I can then I see it. And then I know in 3 weeks' time, that person's going to come back to me and say, I knew that worked, but I stopped doing it. I know it was in my 411, but I stopped doing it. I got distracted. And then they're beating themselves up. But they're not getting the results that they wanted. And then we start being unkind to ourselves. And all what's happening, well, we're then giving ourselves negative language because we don't think we're good enough, because we've not done what we said we was going to do, and therefore we haven't got the results that we wanted. Suddenly, guess where we are? We're back in the pit of despair again. And
Yeah.
being kind to ourselves is doing what we promise ourselves we will do. And that is what a 411 is. I am going to do these tasks because by doing it, I will feel better. And the only other thing I'm going to add, and I put it in the chat, is if you are not waking up and looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you are good enough, start doing it. Because you are good enough. You are beautiful the way you are. Don't try and be somebody else. Be the best version of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and again, here I am, I'm saying like, okay, have these huge dreams, right? But keep your commitments small, you guys. You want to keep your commitments small because it's more important to create a pattern of success. Half the time, what you actually do hardly matters in the scheme of things. Like this, it's the pattern. It's more important for you to see yourself being successful, being present, being consistent. That's where you're really going to get some traction. So don't on your 411, don't put 700 things. And trust me, my one thing, I've got like 7 slots on that. I'm like, it's a constant work in progress because I always want so much right now. I need that instant gratification. That's who I am as a person. So I really have to work on those things and make sure that, yes, I'm giving myself instant gratification. And I'm also trusting that pattern of success. That's what I call it, the pattern of success. And that comes from the Compound Effect book. It's the small little things you do every day are more important than a grand thing. And again, for me, it's like it's building up that pattern, because when I'm doing something well, when I finally get there, I don't want to, I'm on day 400 on Duolingo. I had to pay $2.99 the other day to buy an extra day because I can't break it, because I know if I break my pattern, I'll probably not get back onto that for months. Right? So I have to, that's how I see myself. I'm someone who does this every single day, and it's just little things, and it doesn't matter what it is, and it shouldn't be 1,000 things. When we're doing a 66-day challenge, and for some of you, we've done that before, and you've seen me fail, and you've seen me coach through people through this. Stop picking huge things. When you're building a pattern of success, start small. You can still do extra stuff, but the commitment is only to the critical, most important thing. That will give you the confidence and the energy to do the add-ons. I think of them as like a little extra backpack, little extra stuff in my backpack. This is what my job is. Here's the extra stuff I'm carrying along. If an alien landed on, by the way that the world is going, if aliens land, don't be surprised, right? I'm going to be selling my house. I don't know about you, but we've got like a marketing program already ready. Just kidding. But when you're making your commitments to yourself, what is it that you're going to do no matter what? With the flood, the fire, the coronavirus, whatever happens, what are you going to do no matter what? That's what you commit to. If you don't think you do it, then don't commit to it. You're just giving yourself more negative reinforcement, as Sally talked about, right? Does that make sense? And this is my opinion, by the way. This is all just life experience. So anyone else want to say something before we get to the next one? And you guys, this is heavy stuff we're talking about here, right? So of course I'm always fun, and there's a lot of levity, and I use a lot of humor in my life and in my business. But please know that these are very heavy, serious things. If you want to talk with me, Sally, or whatever, everyone can, because we are bringing stuff to the surface that, by the way, was there anyway. We can't tackle what we don't know is there. Oh, hi, Havana.
Hi, I actually really want to be very open right now and just say I'm doing CBT at the moment, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And one of the aspects to it is you have a negative thought and you put things that support that thought and things that don't support that thought. And 9 times out of 10, the things that don't support it, it makes you feel so much better. I mean, there is resources online, and it just kind of counteracts all of these doubts. So I just thought I'd share and let everyone know, because it's a major help.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I've also done some of those therapies, and it is interesting. Sometimes it's the fear of the fear is more fearful than the actual thing that we're fearing. And I've heard it as like waiting for the shoe to drop is a lot harder than just letting the shoe drop and picking up the shoe, right? Or there's all kinds of different expressions. And the work is another something that it does talk about that. I don't know if you guys have heard of the work. I forgot the name of the person who does this practice, but again, it's another therapy where you really do let yourself discover all of these things that you're afraid of, and then you get to make a conscious decision of what's real and what's not real. And again, this is about life, and this applies to business.
We have to be so guarded, because it's so easy to have that negative thought pattern just repeat on a, in that self-flagellation that you're not good enough or you're not doing enough. And when we become business owners, there's nobody there always to pick us up, and we're used to somebody telling us what to do or how to get out of the hole, and yet we have to find and dig deep that within ourselves. So the self-care is so important, and learning how to deal with yourself when you start self-flagellating is so important.
Absolutely. And it's a blessing and a curse that your business is exactly what you make it. Right? It's like, that's wonderful for a minute. And then some days you're like, can someone else just start doing all this stuff? It's too much. Trust me, there are plenty of days I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't do all this, right? It's okay to have those days. I just have to get from that and go, okay, is that really the truth? Is that really who I am? No, that's not. That's just a feeling I'm having in the moment. Let's acknowledge it and say, this is a hard moment. And then let's realize that based on the patterns of success that I've created in the past, I can figure my way out of everything, right? And that's every one of you. We've all been through hard stuff day after day, right? And again, in this business, it is, and by the way, when I say this business, I don't just mean estate sales. I mean all sales. I mean all businesses. And by the way, every business is a sales business, whether you're a doctor or a realtor or an agent, right? It's the same thing. You still need clients. And somebody may say, no, I don't choose to work with you. And that is okay. And the minute that we embrace that, you guys, there's such freedom. Oh my God. It's not my job to make them do what they want. It's only my job to ask them if they'd like to do business with me. That's a mic drop right there, right? You're like, oh my God, I didn't know. I thought I had to wrangle them into convincing them. That's not the case, right? So thank you for being so transparent, Havana. I really appreciate that. Does anyone else want to do a share before we move on and get to the next
me.
one? Oh, hi.
Hiya. I think the one thing that I find is probably not to isolate yourself. I think if you isolate yourself, you're just going to go further and further down. So I think you've got the opportunity to get into the marketing center and actually like be with people face to face, as well as, you know, working from home and stuff, and doing your, I don't know, lead gen, knocking on doors and things like that. I think being around people and stuff is good, because you can, I touched on this with Sally today a little bit, you can bounce off each other, and there's, as long as you're getting work done as well, there's you know, I just think it's more positive.
100%. And I think that we all have noticed with COVID, we can literally feel and see the difference between energy and that loneliness, a word I didn't even know existed in my vocabulary until recently, and having that acknowledgement. So thank you for sharing that. You're definitely not the only one who's had that experience. No matter how free we are, I think that's definitely a new awareness. And you're right. This is one of those jobs. Before Keller Williams, I always thought this was a lonely business. You're a solitary agent running your business and filling all those roles. So yes, we do need to leverage our market center, our friends, and, you know, again, even agents around the world, right, that are doing similar things. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Anyone else before we move on?
I'll let you know, something just happened yesterday to me, which I thought I was going to have a little bit of a breakdown over. And all it was the other day when I was at the market center, Sally and I set up a nurture campaign to go out to everybody on my database, which was all fine. And in that database were my group from the Women in Business Networking group. And we also have our own little chat set up as well. Now, because the emails went out introducing myself, a few of them made a comment on the chat about how this is not data protection, GDPR has to be observed. And they didn't point it directly at me, but I knew it was mine, because as soon as I saw in Nurture what had gone out, I knew it was my email that they were talking about. So I thought, I went red, you know, I was just really upset inside, thinking, oh my God, I've only just joined this group and they're already picking me up on my flaws. And so I just quickly wrote a little message back saying, really so sorry. I think this may be my email. I'm just starting out, I'm just learning, so apologies, but I will remove all your emails. I was just sending out an introductory email because you're in my group. I had included you in that list. And then a few minutes later, I get all these messages saying, keep me on, we don't mind. And so then I thought, right, I'm going to take this one step further. When I got home, I said, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for your support. But just to let you know, I am doing a newsletter. And each month I want to focus on a small local business, which will be going to print, and it will be going on all my social media.
And I was really hoping that if you wouldn't mind contributing to that. And then I got a whole flurry of, yes, we'd love to be in your newsletter. And even the ones that complained, both of them said yes. So I was really relieved after that. But the feeling that I had, I was mortified when I saw that. And I was
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, you had a quick emotional cycle of change. It was like you had hit that valley of despair quickly, but because you were so vulnerable and brave and courageous to own that, people honored you. And thank you for sharing that. I think that's wonderful, because I've been doing this for a long time and I still have those fears and those kind of things, but it's okay that not everybody gets us, even if you didn't get all of that, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
yeah. Well, that definitely does happen. And you kind of lead us nicely into our next one, which is lesson 4, which is to submit. Submit to the process and step away from the ego. I've always thought of myself as a humble person. So I didn't even know I had an ego, but we all have one. And it's trying to protect our image of ourselves, to defend the stories of who we are. So I found it helpful to accept. I love this line. The things that got you here are also the things that are holding you back from your next level, right? Isn't that an interesting way to look at it? So now what? Well, once you've trust yourself, right? We've just gone through, now we've built all this trust with ourselves. Well, now you can really trust the models in business. And you guys in KW, they're proven models. It was always just your actions that weren't proven, right? So in Keller Williams, we literally have a book called The Red Book, and it's a roadmap for unbelievable success in real estate. And by the way, you don't have to be a Keller Williams agent to read it, participate. You can do all of this stuff on your own. Gary Keller is this brilliant man, and he actually has a degree in real estate, which there are very few people that I know that have that. But even he didn't just write the book from his ideas. He actually went out and researched scores of top agents. He found the top agents all around the United States, and he looked at their systems. He tracked their patterns, and he took all the similarities, compiled it together, and then he documented his findings and simplified it into a step-by-step recipe to build a big real estate business. So how can you put this into action? Well, first, read the darn book, right? Read the MREA. It's called the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Over and over and over. And people are always asking, how many times? Well, I don't know, but I'm guessing as many times as it takes you to master the implementation of it, at least until you've achieved the success of the level that you desire, right? And I'm talking about success for yourself, for the people in your lives, and maybe even the causes that you support. Next, you need to put yourself in situations like today, actually, and I think some of the groups you may have there, put yourself in situations to be around other people, ones that are above and below where you are currently. Put yourself around people who are on similar journeys. You want people with similar values, work styles. You want their beliefs to be aligned. And hopefully they're having some level of success so that you can consciously learn from them. We always talk about building your circle of 5, and you can do this in every life category, from business to wealth management to health, spirituality, whatever it is. And to do this, obviously we can have real people, but we are in a pandemic as well. So you can also use books. You could take classes, listen to podcasts, find agents in your market center, find agents, even if they're with other companies, leaders in Keller Williams, different business leaders from other industries, right? Tony Robbins is one of mine. He's in my, he doesn't even know. He's like, oh, I'm sure I'm on his list too, right? But he's on my list. He's on one of my things. I want to learn how to do what he does. And you guys be prepared, because all of this that I'm talking about today, it's going to take time. It's going to take energy, and it's going to take brain power. You have to remember that we're creating, and this is special. So we need to respect it, and we need to respect ourselves. And of course, we have to set ourselves up for success in the first place, using time blocking and building a bunker. And what does that look like? It means that setting yourself up, your phone off, having the snacks and the water that you need. Oh my gosh, I can get distracted by anything. You could put me in a padded room and I could get distracted. I mean, that's just who I am. So I have to make sure when I'm doing my lead generation calls, my team is with me. Liz is with me, Jenny's with me. They're texting me all day long. Did you call this person? Did you call this person? Did you call this person? Do whatever it takes to get that done, right? And of course, you want to protect the time, not just for clients, but also to work on your business in addition to working in your business. And you have to remember it's a recipe, not a menu, which means you have to do every step, not just the ones that you like. I fell prey to that for a long time. Now, I bet some of you might be scared to work on your business, and probably an equal amount of you might even be excited, because this sounds like I've just given you permission to avoid lead generation a little longer. But don't get too excited, because we have one more lesson. And that's the end of my number 3. Submit and follow the recipe. Any questions? Oh, that was lesson number 4. Sorry about that, guys.
What I'm going to say is the model works. Follow it. I probably say this 100 times a day, but it works. And if I can reinvent a wheel or break a model, then I'll do my best to. I've learned this works. And we preach it all day long, but
yeah, one of my big ahas is I was at it was called like a mega agent roadshow, and we had some of the biggest names in Keller Williams. Bob Lucido, that guy's doing millions in GCI every year. Chris Suarez, like just name after name of like who's who. And I'm obsessed with patterns, right? So I'm taking notes, and what I end up noticing is that every one of them, and these guys have mega businesses. Some of them have their own side business of coaching. So they could have said like, I'm amazing. I did this, that was special. And what I found true is that every one of them said, when I listened, when I followed the models, when I submitted, and I'm sitting there like, who do I think I am when these mega agents could sit up? We actually paid to see them. They could have said, I'm fantastic all day long, and I would have been writing that down. But what they each said, what was in common is that they followed the models. They listened, they submitted. And that was my big aha. That was a big one for me. And it takes practice, but that's okay too, right? We have time. What else are we doing?
I think it was Carlo at the market center on Monday, because he cycles everywhere. So he mentioned that he bought the MREA on Audible, and literally it was like, oh my God, that's what I'm going to do. So I literally got in the car and ordered it and was listening to it in the car, you know, on my journey. Now I can't unfortunately do it with the kids in the car, but every time I'm in the car on my own, I can't use the excuse that I haven't got time to read, or I'm reading and then I'm so tired that I'm like falling asleep, you know. So I am listening to it, and actually for any one of you out there that struggles to read, you know, that Audible is just brilliant.
That's a great idea. And Jenny's reading The Atomic Habits right now, and that was something that we read, I think last year at the beginning of COVID. It was one of my lists, and I didn't pick everything up about it. But what it talked about is taking one habit and piggybacking one onto the other. So, you know, if you're walking every day, if you decide you want to do a health habit, listen to it while you're walking, right? Try and put these two things together so that it will be a little bit more solidified. So thank you for sharing that, Louise. But yeah, lots of great things. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. It takes so much more energy. So here's our last one. I'm going to move on quick just because we're kind of, I always assume an hour and a half, and I want to make sure that we have enough time. So if you guys have questions, we can certainly come back to it later, but I want to at least make sure we get through some content. So, okay, drum roll, people. Lesson number 5, don't be surprised. You're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to work hard, at least at first. You're going to have to commit to your business. You're going to have to live your standards and your habits. What do I mean by that? Well, everybody has standards. They're just not always happy to admit it, even to themselves, or maybe especially to themselves. So what is a standard? Well, I don't really care what the exact definition is, but I'll tell you what my coach tells me. A standard is not what you say you want. It's not what you write in your manual. At the end of the day, your standard is what you will tolerate. And in your business, to have the most success, you'll want to be clear on what your standards are. You'll want to draw the line, and you need to systematize it. So let's have our standards of excellence. Here are mine. I have 3 that we're going to talk about today. Number 1, you need to have a standard of service. First of all, you have to be your best. You're a professional. You should always deliver over-the-top service. You need to surprise your clients, everything like that, right? You want to be proud. I worked at Disney World. Surprise! And at Disney World, Disneyland, everything in the Disney company, they call every employee is called a cast member. And that's to remind us that we're always on show, whether you're a janitor, behind the scenes, right? It's all about putting on the show because your role is to deliver an experience. Every detail counts. And they would say, people save up, years to do a vacation. Well, how long does it take to save up for a house? Right? So that experience matters. In my opinion, my job is to exceed expectations. You guys, I have a review on Yelp that says I was the best customer service that he'd ever received in any industry, hands down. We still do a lot of business. They give me a lot of referrals. The cool thing is I didn't even know I was doing anything special, right? I just knew it's my job to give the best experience. I wasn't looking for a review. I wasn't doing anything like extra special. It was quite a compliment. I felt fantastic, but we're compensated well in this industry, you guys. When you break it down, the hours that you're working on client business, it's actually a high rate of pay. The difference is the time in between clients, right? And you guys, our commissions are flexible. So if I want to make sure I'm making the most money, I need to give extra service. I need to go over the top. Why? Because I like a full commission personally. And it's so much easier to ask to be compensated well when we know the value of the service and the results that we're delivering. The next one is standards of habits. Where you spend your time matters. In the bold class, the answer is always lead generation, even when you're not doing lead generation. But in real life, you have to decide. You have to commit and you have to maintain a standard of business activities that you'll be able to be held accountable to. For me, it's always 50 contacts a week. That's my minimum. Like, I have to hit 50 contacts. By the way, I usually hit between 60 and 110. That's my average. But my standard is 50. Why do I not just stop at 50? Or why do I not raise my standard? Because I'm not a standard person. I want to see myself as someone who goes above and beyond. That's what I'm selling. I've made that my value. So take a picture of this slide, because this has all kinds of things, but how many social media posts are you going to count for a week? How many of contacts are you going to call? How many valuations are you going to do so that you can become very good at valuing someone's house? Everyone's always like, what is my house worth? I've been doing this 16 years. I've sold hundreds of houses. I get terrified anytime someone asks me that question, because what if I'm wrong, right? So we need to practice this so we have more confidence. How about your market knowledge? How many hours are you spending learning about what your market is doing? How about a contract? I used to take mine to bed every single night for weeks. I am so good with the contract. That was my value proposition. I was 30 years old in a new career in a neighborhood of affluent 45 to 60-year-olds. I needed to make sure that I stood out some way, and I wasn't from the area. I needed to be special. So I wanted to be skilled with a contract. Are you a master at marketing? Are you a master at negotiating? You guys, there's classes on all this. Do you know how to write compelling marketing copy? Because anybody can write bullet points. Staging, presentation. You can take classes in customer service. There's so much stuff you can do, from scripts to general development, right? And let's be honest, how much time are we really putting into this? I'll bet that we are not putting as much as we could. And why is all of this important? Well, I'm sure it'll be no surprise to learn that the rate of converting your leads to appointments will greatly improve as your skills improve. Oh my gosh. You'll be so much better able to sell yourself with more confidence too. And you guys, this is the fun stuff. This is where you can really stand apart from the competition. This is where you build your arsenal. And for my high D's and my high C's in the room, these are the activities that you fill your calendar with until your time slot is filled with appointments. And even when you get super busy, this is what you're still going to protect and time block for. Because this is where you decide with your actions which things are your commitments and which things are just an interest. And by the way, there's no judgment here, but you should really know, because this is where you want to be intentional. No matter how many Google alarms it takes. Again, I have people that remind me. I have agents on my team. I make them set multiple Google alarms because we know these things are going to get distracted. Normal life happens, right? So you have to figure out what's your compass, or who's your compass? What tools do you have? What systems have you set in place, or are you willing to set in place? What are your resources? Maybe it's a peak performance partner. Maybe it's a PC coach. Maybe it's a personal coach. But you need to get into a routine, and you need to ensure that you're keeping your mind focused in the right direction. Okay, I'm back to nerd Patrice again. So Remember we said earlier that if it's not hard at first, then it's not real change. Well, hopefully you agree with me that it's our job to master creating higher levels of success for ourselves. So we're going to have to work on it. We're going to have to consciously work and make a decision about the actions we take each day. So for me, and this is something I'm really into right now, is tracking my patterns so that I know every morning that I'm making decisions and not having reactions. I just want to pause on that for just a second, because how many times are we doing things just because it's a habit? Maybe not even a habit that we chose. Maybe it's something that society or parents or friends that put it for us. So I want us to consider making decisions versus having reactions. So did you know that scientists have actually found that you can use and manipulate your own neural patterns so that you'll have a better chance of success? And you can do this by getting into practices like meditation, yoga, guided visualization. And you guys, I'm just getting into meditation. There are dozens of free options on YouTube. You can get focused on health, wealth building, mindset, relationships. I mean, it's everything. It's really fascinating. And visualization is really an ideal solution to quickly build these new pathways, so it makes it all easier. And I just find this all to be fascinating. I mean, you can really create a path in your mind toward your desired behavior just by visualizing what the journey and the end result of success would look like, what it feels like. What would you be doing if this was really your reality? And this can work to achieve optimal health, the ideal life, and just imagine what it can do in your real estate business. Like when you're walking into a meeting and you've already envisioned your client signing that contract. When you're imagining what it feels like to say, "We're closed, Mr. Seller," right? Imagine when you go in there and you're doing your presentation and you've already been experiencing with them. Won't that be a much easier way to sell yourself? And imagine what life will look like when you're living the life of a mega agent. Why not leverage your subconscious to help design and create the structure of your business, right? Book some time to envision with yourself and see yourself in the successful roles as what a successful boss would look like, and yourself as what a successful employee looks like. Because in this business, we're both, right? I go on appointments. I also lead my team and make those decisions. And it is two separate roles. And it can be a little bit challenging if you're not prepared for it. So today, let's decide and commit on a few things, like your minimum hours to week that you'll work. And let's get ready to take action, you guys. I love the book, The 12-Week Year, and our team right now is doing a book club. I've read it a couple of times, and I have it both on Audible. I have the book, and then someone I met on the plane is like, "I've never seen anyone write more than they read in a book." I literally sit there with my books and I write everything out. So I'm a little, again, nerd alert here. But in this book, it's fascinating, a fantastic book. He talks about the difference between being great and mediocre are usually just a few small things. And it could be things like, and take a picture of these too if you want, 2 to 3 extra appointments per week. And it could be practice appointments, you guys. It doesn't even have to be with a real client. We're just trying to get better. What if you had 5 to 10 extra calls per day? 3 hours a week of working on your business in addition to what you're doing in your business. What if you learn to delegate or leverage just one more task a week? How would that change? And this one's a hard one, but what if we can learn to act on our commitments versus our feelings? And that takes practice. And it's okay. We just want to commit to the journey and to begin to train ourselves. And our last standard that we're going to talk about today is the standard of mindset. And yes, I know I just said that the answer is always lead generation for everything. And you guys are in the sale business, so a lot of this is really just statistics. And yet the state of your mindset and your confidence levels, especially with regard to your value proposition, your skills, your standard of service, your results, your resume, right? If you're confident in that and you have an inner belief, this will influence your likelihood for success. In other words, if you expect a great call, you're more likely to get one. And well, if you expect a yucky call, you'll probably get that too. And remember, we want to think of your business practice as your laboratory, not just a stage. What do I mean by that? Well, your real-time calls should actually be shaping your business systems. You want to use this data to develop your communication style, to track your systems for future improvement, You want to be questioning and refining your dialogue. You should be listening to the language that you're saying, and then also the language that you hear sellers saying over and over and over again. Ideally, we want you to be gaining confidence, building confidence. And we always hear that term, building confidence, right? I didn't inherit any confidence, that's for sure. You have to build this. So that means it has to be developed. And how does that happen? You guys, it's with trial and error and with practice. So remember earlier I said, if you want to think of this as your learning lab, what if we perform when we're on a call with a client with a goal of growing from each experience? Not like we're taking a test, right? What if we allow the room that growth is as much our objective as an appointment? Might that change things when we're having a phone call with somebody? Right? Because we can trust that every call and every context is getting us one step closer to our future, even when it doesn't provide those instant results. And again, this can change everything. And then here's my last one. So my last and favorite mindset lesson that you've heard me say over and over, and that I preach, and I really try to practice this every day, is to get out of judgment and stay out of there. And you guys, that starts with being conscious to stop judging other people too. Because I found that when you stop judging others, somehow magically, it feels like there's no more judgments on you. Because it's really only your opinion that matters anyway. And you guys, this is life-changing in every aspect and in every relationship. Okay, so how do we put this into action? Well, since they say the first step is the hardest, I'm going to tell you, we have to just dive in. So everybody, grab a pen if you're not writing notes, and I know some of you already have it. But please take your pen out and circle any or all of the things that you might just be open to implementing in this class. By the way, you won't be able to do them all at one time, but take a pen out and circle them just for a second while we're here together. And then next, I want everyone to open their calendar, whether it's a paper calendar or your phone, and I want everybody to time block 1 hour within the next 24-hour period. And in that hour, you're going to take your very first small step. And it could be something from this class or a past class. It doesn't have to be from me, but something that everyone will take one step in the next hour that you give to yourself. And it could be 2 30s or 4 15 minutes, or it could be a whole hour, whatever it is. And you guys, this can be as simple as just buying a journal, participating in some thinking and mapping time for your business, and ideally that will be reoccurring. You can schedule a class so that you'll grow a skill. You can open a savings account, and I don't mean now, I mean book that time now. And this is what you're going to use that hour for. Maybe you want to buy some new running shoes to start an exercise routine. Maybe you want to schedule a much needed fierce conversation, either with yourself, a partner, or someone in your business. Maybe you want to order a book, ask a mentor for help. My favorite is to book the time to have a board meeting with yourself. You guys, journaling is not about writing for feelings, although that happens too. Journaling is about documenting and recording your observations. It's the only scientific way that I can think of that you can really look at every obstacle in your life. It's the only way to look at yourself objectively so that we can find and test the truest and most accurate solutions to the many problems that arrive in our lives and our business. I like to think of it as my personal board meeting. So from now on, let's decide what we're willing to commit to. Let's decide what we're willing to exchange for that. And last and finally, let's just do it. And let's do it with intentional, relentless consistency. And that's it. Thank you guys for joining. That's my last lesson. Love to hear any feedbacks, comments, or if anybody wants to share what their one thing, their first step might be today.
I know mine's time mapping.
What is it? Mind mapping?
Mapping time.
I love that. And doesn't mapping sound better than planning? I'm like, oh, planning, that sounds terrible. Planners are boring. Ugh. But mapping sounds exciting. You're like, oh, this is a journey. I love that.
I think I want to identify the patterns that you've spoken about. I think I kind of get on the treadmill and experience them, knowing that they're coming, and I just sort of like stand and wait to be hit by the train rather than jumping out of the way using the tools that we've kind of got right in front of us. So I really liked your idea about, you know, when it's coming to that sort of time where you're going to experience something, put something else into place to kind of stop it in its tracks. So yeah, I really like that. So I'm definitely going to be doing that. And I'm also going to be downloading stuff to listen to whilst I'm walking my dog, because finding time to read for me is a bit of a nightmare. So using that tip, I have to walk my dog every day, so I can certainly be piggybacking, like you say, the habits that I need to implement. So I'm killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah. So number one, dogs are the very best accountability partners, right? Like dogs and children, right? They definitely know how to get their way. We can learn things from them. And number two, Ruth, I just want to say, when you're talking about putting a hard stop, don't expect it to be a hard stop on this pattern. Give yourself the time to experience the bumps that are going to come, and just let it be a gradual journey, the roller coaster of getting out of that pattern. But it's not going to be a hard stop, right? Let yourself have the permission to enjoy that journey and learn as you go. So thank you. And Carol has her hand up, and then we'll move on to the next one. Thank you, Ruth.
Hi there, Patrice. Thanks. I thoroughly enjoyed everything. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you. There's just so much that you covered. I think for me, because I'm very new, I'm enjoying this part of the journey. I'm actually loving it. And I'm like a sponge. I'm just soaking everything up at the moment. Lead generation, because I think when you come from being an employee, you follow rules, so you know when to start, when to have your break, when to go to the loo, when to finish. And my fear was coming out of that environment and then going into a less focused environment, if you like, an environment where you need more focus, personal focus. So I was a wee bit worried about that. This is about my second or third Zoom call today. So what it's doing is, for me, it's building that focus up, which is great, and the confidence. I took somebody's place earlier on in a Zoom call, and it was networking, and then you get put into small groups and you have to chat with other business owners, and my heart was in my mouth. But by the end of it, I thought, I actually held my own there. I can do this.
I love that. And you want to journal on the yucky parts, but you also want to journal on your successes and those wins too, because that's what you're going to really want to call on, right? And what we focus on is what expands. So we always want to make sure, and again, sometimes it's nice to get out yucky, but remembering, like, it started out with fear, and this is what really happened. This is the reality, so that you can recall that. So thank you so much, Carol. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being a co-host. Danny, I see your hands up. Thank you.
Hi, Patrice.
Hold on one second, Danny. Andrew, you came off of mute. You were off too. So let me know if you want to. Do you want to say something after Danny?
No, I'm just quiet.
Okay, good. Okay, Danny, go ahead.
Hi, Patrice. Great session. Thank you. I think with me, I need to be true to my time blocking. I've got all these ideas, and I'm going to do, X, Y, and Z in a day, and do 3 hours of lead gen, and then I'll get distracted and I do other things, and I just kind of, I think I just need to throw my phone in the other room or something and just really be true to time blocking. That's one thing. Practice. I think that's another one for me, and being intentional and purposeful to the task and getting it done. And lastly was podcasts. I think I'm going to subscribe to the podcast. So
I love
great
that.
Great session. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate that. And thank you for saying stuff. It's so nice when everyone's interacting. It really does help me to enjoy it. And, obviously I wrote this class, so this is my real life. So all of these lessons, trust me, been there, done that, right? I'm not like writing from like learning. It's like, this is everything I've struggled with and that I still do struggle with, right? And I think when we give ourselves permission to see it as the journey and the practice, as you said, Danny, and when we start using those kind of words, just that alone, that just changes everything, right? It's like, that you give yourself grace when you're in practice. You certainly would for your children. And so thank you for sharing. And I just love this language, and I'm really excited to hear kind of how we take some of those, because I think we really did break apart some pieces that a lot of people are feeling. And so, Sally, maybe you and I can have a conversation. I'm certainly always happy to be a part of it, although you've stuck with me only in the afternoons. And when you're doing 3 3 classes a day. I'm really pleased that you guys stuck it out with me.
And lastly, I think I'm in that valley at the moment, so I'm just kind of getting to, well, hopefully I'm getting to the top part. So, well, I am getting to the top part now, so just slowly getting out of the valley. So
it's all right. We're building a great big rocket ship that we're going to just all get into, I think.
Well, and it's nice to see it as a valley and not just like a skid cliff, right?
There's a Disney cartoon. There's a Disney cartoon song that suddenly comes into my head that my children used to watch. I'm not going to sing it, but if you've worked for Disney, you'll know exactly what song I'm talking about. Little Einsteins, Patrice.
Which one?
Little Einsteins.
I don't know that one. I worked for Disney in the 90s. This was like Aladdin. It's this little program about these little kids that are going in their little rocket ship, and the song is just hitting my brain. I love that. So Louise is going to give us the soundtrack to it. To be honest, I actually sing Let It Go from Frozen, and it's embarrassing because I don't have a good voice, but I still sing and dance with my dog, my accountability partner, all through the town. But whatever it is, you guys, again, it's about bringing that element of fun, because we talked about this can feel a little bit lonely. We know that we're going to hear no quite a bit. So some of this is weird. Now we just acknowledge and brought all this up. How can we make this so that it's fun and so our journey is kind of the best? So I'm excited to brainstorm with you guys more. Does anyone else want to share before we sign out? And I could stay on for a little bit longer if anybody wants to have a private convo. I think I have about 30 minutes.
I just want to say, hi. I just want to say, I just like your one where you say you're good enough. Actually wake up in the morning and say that, because sometimes we sort of compare ourselves a little bit with what's happening around us and sort of feel out of our depth. How can I be good enough because the others have been doing it for 30 years or whatever it is? And actually I sat yesterday and I wrote something down going, people open coffee shops all over the place, and it's coffee. It's the same coffee, but a new coffee shop can open up and it's a different experience and it's a different thing. It's someone will go and buy that coffee as well. It's old coffee is not bad, but it's just a different experience. And it's that being brave enough to go and stand up and say, I'm good enough. I can do this too, and go and do it.
I love that. And don't we all want a new experience? I mean, right? We're constantly looking for the new thing. Welcome to leveraging our subconscious. That's a good point, Laura. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm going to stop our recording because I think there's plenty on for our class. Okay, so we are stopped.